The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Rory? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neiman, aka Good Lawgic. As you're well aware by now, if you're sitting there in the stands, which I had nicely set up for you, I hope you appreciate that. I got Matthew Marsden backstage there. Based Matthew Marsden backstage there. Before I bring him out here, because he's British by birth, so I wanted to share with you some genuinely upsetting news. Something that I learned about just like an hour or so ago, and I don't know if it broke even more than an hour or so ago. And that is the creator of this song has passed.
When I look out into your eyes out there, when I look out into your faces, you know what I see? I see a little bit of Elvis in each and every one of you out there. Let me tell you, well, Elvis is everywhere.
It's true. It's true. Elvis is everywhere, except as obviously in the anti-Elvis, which is Michael J. Fox. But it's even in Blue People. He's even in Blue People. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. So rest in peace, Mojo Nixon, creator of arguably the greatest song since, I don't know, the passing of Mozart. He was a genius. He was a genius. And while I might be exaggerating a little bit about his talents, I will tell you that I actually really did like that song. And I might be watching with you later, like in the second half of this show. I might be watching with you and with Matthew some astonishing debates between Mojo Nixon and Pat Buchanan. That's right, going back to 1990. And you see the difference between how people would debate 30 years ago versus today. It's like we're on a different planet. We're totally on a different planet. But that's for later. That's for later. Right now, I want to bring out my base new friend, and that is, of course, Matthew Marsden. Welcome to the show, my brother.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So now the way that Matthew was introduced to me.
The
way those of you who are unfamiliar with my initial social media interaction with Matthew Marsden was that I put out a tweet less than 5 minutes after I got this bad boy, and I was very thrilled about the fact that I was awarded by the city of New York the recognition that I am indeed a member of the press. So I was mocking the press. And what happened there? I said something. So I said, now I'm part of the fake news, and stay back, stop the spread, which is obviously that's what you need to do. Not that I give out medical advice because I'm not a doctor. He's not a doctor. There's no medical advice here. I don't even know what medicine is. Medicine might be a figment. Your doctor knows what medicine is, not me. But yeah, he saw that and didn't. he didn't realize. I think you must have missed the first line. What happened? Tell me what happened.
I don't know, but it wasn't pretty. But
he was calling me a DeSantis fan or whatever, and I was like, wait, what? What? So I actually ripped on him a little bit. He took it back and was in good spirits, and I appreciate the fact that he didn't get bent out of shape when I sort of like ranked on him a little bit, and he genuinely is a really base guy. So I hope you don't mind me sharing that little.
No, not at all. We all make mistakes, and I think that sometimes on the Twitters, sometimes you get like partial, right? You because I don't sit on it all the time, right? Like you don't, and then you get something come up and you're like, what? Like what happened to me over the past 2 days, which was just insane. I just in like craziness. And you kind of get a response and you think, oh, hang on a minute, they mean that. And then it's crossed wires. And anyway, reasonable people get to figure it out, right?
Yes,
that's what we do.
No
We're
blood, no foul.
On the same team. And
we're definitely on the same team. What happened over the last couple of days?
Oh, so I just made I was just sitting there watching everything going on. And I mean, like you said before, I'm not an American by birth. I'm an American by choice, and I actually did it the right way, you know. And I look at what's going on in the country, and whoever you might have wanted to vote for or whatever, to me it was a binary choice. Right now it's Trump or Biden, and I was like, okay, this is a binary choice. No, it's not. I'm like, well, it is, because he's going to be the nominee. But I said, look, I'm just don't shoot the messenger, right? Like, there's no. I'm like, look, I might want the Bills to be in the Super Bowl final, but they're not in the Super Bowl final,
right?
So it doesn't matter, right? So it's just a practical thing. When you look at everything that's going on in this country and the destruction that Joe Biden is, well, whoever is got the hand up the backside of Joe Biden, like making him talk, right? The meat puppet that he is. They want to destroy the very fabric of this country. So to me, even if it's just to stop the bleeding, right? Like, you might hate Trump or whatever it might be. To me, it's a binary choice, and he's just terrible. He's absolutely the worst. And I mean, look, I just feel that it's going to be very, very difficult to come back from another 4 years of Joe Biden. I mean, that's just the way I think. I've seen it out in the streets. I came from from a blue state.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want your country going like that. It's not good. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I got a lot of people like coming at me like, well, why don't you condemn this? I'm like, it's not my job to condemn anyone or anything. And if someone says something really bad, I presume that most decent people would condemn it, and you don't have to go out and say that, right? Like, this is a bad thing.
Right.
So, and I'm a bit of a scrapper, so I kind of got into it.
You haven't condemned AIDS this month. I didn't hear you say anything bad about AIDS.
Yeah, why do you? Yeah, you agree with it? Then you agree with the AIDS? I'm like, no, of course I don't. Of course I don't. This is just ridiculous, and I'm not going to go. And it's not incumbent on me to go and police the internet, by the way, and talk about all the bad people. I mean, it's just not.
Right.
So,
once you get one of these, then you're able to police the internet and tell everyone that you know best. You know
fake
best.
News, Joe. Fake news. Fake news. Okay.
That's not bad. Not bad.
It's probably bad. So, everyone's got a Trump. It's like a Walken. Everyone's got a Walken.
I have a much better Walken than my Trump. My Walken.
Go on, let's hear your Walken. I want to hear it.
It's been a while since I Christopher Walken. Oh. Yeah, it's been a while. Oh, there you go.
Joe, news. I got a funny story. Can I tell you a quick Christopher Walken story?
Yeah.
All right. So I was doing a film with an actor, and he'll remain nameless, right? But he was playing a theater actor in the film, in a film, right?
Okay.
So normally when you do theater, you're a lot bigger, right? Because you got to fill the space. And
you in acting school?
Yeah, you get to fill the space. So you project and all this. So he's doing the movie with Christopher Walken. So he goes over to him and he goes, this is a true story. He goes, Chris, should I play it like as a movie actor playing a theater actor? Like, should I just be small and come up a little bit, or should I play it like full on, like the theater, like I was doing it in theater? And Christopher Walken goes, movies, and walks off, and that was it. And then later on, another cast member comes over and goes, Chris tells me that you had a great conversation about the craft. And he was like, what are you talking about? Movies. So anyway, yeah, it's
great.
That's Hollywood
God.
for you.
That was so good. That was really good. Wow, phenomenal. All right. So you, by the way, you're married with a whole litter, right?
Yeah, I got a bunch of kids. Yeah.
How many kids, if you don't
mind?
I have
9 kids.
9.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually only 22 years old. This is just the age from the stress. You know what I mean? I had hair, damn it.
9 kids. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I have 6.
Oh, bravo, dude.
Yeah,
amazing.
But 9. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what's funny is people come up and they go, "Oh, how'd you do it? And I'm like, they didn't just all come up on a
Right.
bus outside your house at once, right?
Come on
It
in.
just-
You got the room in the back. Yeah, no,
yeah,
you do
it's
have time.
gradual.
Yeah, you have time to build into it. It's true.
Yeah,
It's true. It's not as overwhelming as like Octomom all of a sudden just having
yeah,
8 dropped on you.
yeah,
It is very different. In fact, I found with mine that I was actually remarking to my wife that we were smart for having a girl first and a girl last, because I have 3 and 3. So I was the oldest one. She just became maternal from the time she was like 5. She was taking
right.
care of younger siblings,
Yeah,
and for the rest of her life, she's ever since then. I'm old. I'm 53, so she's 20. She just turned 26. So yeah, so her whole life she's been raising kids and been like a
yeah,
role model for them. And now having the youngest one be a girl, it's just sort of had like the last one who eventually we're expecting, to leave the nest. Like she's more attached,
yeah.
which sort of helps fill, like if she was like detached, it would sort of feel like this house is kind of empty now that I've married off 2 and I have a third one that's getting married later this month. So
I literally said to my daughter on the way back, I was bringing one of them back from ballet today, and I said, I'm kind of okay looking forward to my sons getting married, but I'm not looking forward to you
right.
getting married. Like I hate to say it, and I know I'm going to be a blubbering wreck. But
Yeah.
what's interesting? When you have a big family, number one, I think, I'm sure you say, I mean, it's chaotic, right? It's chaotic, but there's a beauty to it.
Mhm.
And the kids kind of understand that they don't get to be precious, right?
Right.
Like they just got to, they're part of the team, and they just have to get on with it. And like you say, all my kids, they all know, I mean, down to, so I've got my oldest one was 24 from a previous relationship, and then I've got 17 down to 9 months.
Mhm.
So, and my 17-year-old is, I mean, he's 6'4", he's bigger than me, actually. He's 230 pounds, and he can change a diaper. He loves kids. And you see these kids when they see other babies, they go over and they want to hold them.
Mhm.
To me, it's just amazing. And one of the biggest mistakes people make, I mean, look, it's hard, right? Because it's expensive to have a lot of kids, but it really has kind of been damaging, I think, to society, that the fact that families have got smaller and smaller and smaller, because you don't get to be selfish when you're in a family of 6 or 5 or 6 or 9 in my case. You just don't, because you've got to pitch in,
But
right?
that's baked into healthy parenting from the time the newborn comes home. Like,
Mhm.
and one of the things that my wife always stressed whenever she had a newborn, because the youngest one is always the one that gets the center of attention.
Yeah,
So what she stressed in them is to the one who was replaced, so to speak, and being the youngest, that it's like, this is our baby and we're going to take
yeah,
care of our baby, and our baby needs a diaper, our baby is is hungry or whatever. And it's like, and that way, even if it's a boy, they sort of feel as if this is looking out for their younger sibling
yeah.
is part of their duty, their responsibility, and they fall in love with the kid rather than resenting the kid. And that's a very important element towards having a healthy dynamic. My kids, they're so tight with each other, thank God, because a large part of that is because Lady Lawgic basically spent a great deal of time just not just daily, like hourly, reminding them this is our baby, this is our our kid. And that's how you build a genuine love. We, like you said, like you referred to it, like it's a team. Like it's like we're gonna, the bonding becomes as a team. It's not the one parent with this kid, and then with this kid. So now if I'm with you, I'm taking away from that one. It's like, no, we're all just like, that's what a family is, as opposed to just a company or something like that.
No, 100%. And I think the other aspects to that, certainly when you have girls, is I've made it a mission to tell them that I love them and that they're beautiful every day.
Mhm.
Because I think that's really important. If you don't do that, then they're going to go and try and find, especially for fathers with their daughters, right? They're going to go and try and find that love somewhere else, and it might be a dysfunctional kind of love. So You want to, without them being conceited, right? You don't want to tell them that they're princesses and that they're the greatest thing in the world and blah blah. But you want to tell them they're beautiful and and you love them, and that's an unconditional love. And what I've done with the other kids, I'm sure you've done it as well. Is I tell my boys, you treat girls the way that you expect your mother and your sisters to be treated, and the same way for I mean, apart from the fact where they're ripping each other from the head and they're having an argument and all that, but you have to really install that in them, that, like you say, we are a team. This is the family. Segueing from that a second, a friend of mine, Tim Clemente, who was on the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, said something to me once. He said, look, there's you and your wife and there's the kids, and everything else is outside of that, right? That is your family. That is your core family. And then they'll go and have their spouses, and then that's their family, right? And you know what I'm saying? Because people tend to let a lot of outside influence come in to them. Yeah. But I think that it's really important for you to be solid and say, it's you and your wife and your kids, and that's that, until they grow up and then they leave the nest. And my father-in-law, I'll never forget it, when I got married, I was in this beautiful big church in Malta called, it's called the Mostar Dome. It's actually the third biggest dome in Europe. And I remember him coming up to me up this giant aisle, and he said to me, and he was beaming, and I was like, I'm totally not going to be that gracious, right? When it's my turn. He goes, she's yours now. And I can see his face to this day. And I think that, that having a solid relationship and bringing up responsible children, it also changes the way you see the world, right? Yeah. It just does. It just does. So it's a blessing. I wish more people could experience it and should experience it. They feel like they can't do it, but you can. And it's the greatest gift that I've ever had. It's my crowning achievement, actually.
And there's such strength in that. And I think that that's why we're seeing such efforts from the powers that be to try and deconstruct the family.
Because, 100%.
Because they make you much more dependent on outside forces, particularly the state, or, and they make you, you're just far more controllable and more malleable toward whatever agenda is being pushed forward, toward whatever the issue is. There's a far easier control they have over you when you don't have that bedrock foundation of a strong family around you.
Well, it's a Marxist tactic, right? I remember when BLM came out, and it was on their website. I remember going to the website, and it says, we need a village should, or something like that. The village should raise a child. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, absolutely no. And then I came out
as a child. That was Hillary Clinton's big thing.
Yeah, well, go figure. And so I turned around and I was like, I'm not backing this organization. And of course, then you get called a racist and all that. And it doesn't matter that I'm an immigrant to the country and my wife is Maltese and my oldest son is half black. None of that matters. Like, you're a racist because you don't the destruction of the family. And by the way, it's like, excuse me, they targeted the black family. The black family was super, super strong. If you go back in the day, like the black father was the center of their community, and that's just been destroyed
completely.
Just
obliterated. It's like, it's a miracle if they see their for 70% of them, it's a miracle if they see their dad, more than twice a year. So
yeah, it's horrendous. And what do you expect? I mean, I remember watching, I know it sounds silly. I remember watching some kind of one of those shows. I don't know if it was a clip from Maury or one of those, reality shows, and they got a drill sergeant in. Did you see this one where they got the drill sergeant in with the kid?
No.
And the kid was like playing up all the time, and the drill sergeant's like yelling at him, and he's all crying, he's getting in his face, and he went, "Do you want me to be your dad? Do you want me to be your dad?" And he went, "Yes." He's just like, wow. What can you say? I mean, it was just super powerful. That's all they want. That's these kids. That's what they want. They want, in an ideal world, that nuclear family, like the mom and the dad. And look, I grew up without a dad. And so, I always say to my friends, who give themselves a hard time about parenting because, you're learning on the job, right? With each one, they're all different. I say, listen, you know how low my bar is? I'm turning up. I'm here every day. So like, that's a win for me.
That's
Everything.
But that's ultimately the most important thing, is
Yeah.
that you're there. That's 80% of it right there, is that you're there, and not like, an a-hole. But basically, if you're there and you're not beating on your kids, or either physically, emotionally, or mentally, then that's 80% of the job right there. I mean,
Yeah, well,
providing for them obviously is important. You have to provide for them. That's your responsibility. But yeah, just being home with them so that they know that they matter to you.
yeah. I mean, my kids. It's funny. Like, I don't want to get or is this the world's smallest violin? But when I was growing up, I looked around and I was like, my first soccer game that I played for my school, my dad wasn't there. All the way through all the achievements I have, when I went to the Oscars and I won the National Television Awards, and I was on the biggest television in England, television show in England. All this, my dad was never there. And my kids can never say that about anything. I was at every single one of their first swim meet. I was at their first volleyball game, their first soccer game. Every single one I've been there.
Right.
And it makes a difference, because my kids. Some people say to me, well, a lot of people say, your kids are very confident. They're very confident. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm here. And I make them know that I'm here.
Yeah. You said something earlier about unconditional love. And I had an epiphany about this when I had a child who was always one of my kids, who was always like a very good kid. Always, like, never did well in school, was never a discipline problem or anything like that, and did something that was completely out of character and got disciplined for it. Where basically, went drinking. I mean, it wasn't like anything like, but basically wasn't, when 15-year-old going off and getting drunk is not something that, so, and got suspended for it. And when I took him back to school, so I said to him, I said, I want you to know this. I don't love you any less today than I did a week ago. Like, not even a drop less. And he looked at me with this look of complete disbelief. He's like, yeah, you're just saying that. Because he's a very smart kid, right? So he's like, you're saying that. You have to say that. You're my dad, so you're saying that. But he's like, you're lying to me. That's essentially what his eyes were saying to me. That's how I read it, at least. And I said, right now what's going through your head is you think I'm lying to you, and that I'm saying this because I have to say this to you. But I'm telling you, you're mistaken. My respect for you went down, but my love for you did not change at all. And right now what's going through your head is that you think that there's no difference between love and respect, and they're exactly the same thing. But I'm about to prove to you that that's not true. And the way you know that's not true is this. Ask yourself this. And I want you to answer this question honestly. You got 5 siblings. Do you believe us when we tell you that we genuinely love you all the same? Or do you think that we love one of you more and this one a little less? So he thought for a second. He's like, no, I think you love us all the same. So yeah, I said, I can't explain how that happens, but we actually really do. And yet I have a great deal of respect for you and your older siblings, and 0 respect for your infant sister. 0 respect, because she hasn't earned it, because respect goes up and down. But I still love her exactly the same. So your respect took a hit. Yeah, okay, my respect for you took a little bit of a hit. Big deal. That could be earned right back. That's where you earn respect. But no matter what you do, I'm always going to love you exactly the same, just like I love your sister today, who I have no respect for. And I only thought of it as I was reading his mind, and I was processing, how can I establish for him that love and respect are 2 different things. But that unconditional love thing you said, that's how you build confidence. That's how you build a well-adjusted child. Everything is about that is vital. We all need it. It's a craving that every human has. And to deprive your kid of that is you're basically leaving, whether it's a boy or a girl, you're leaving them screwed for life.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I had someone come up to me. It's interesting you're saying about it just came to you. I had someone come up to me and they said, can you give me some advice? I'm about to be a dad. I said, yeah, it's going to kind of be a little bit contradictory. Number one, don't listen to what anyone has to say, because you know what's going to be best for your kid. We've been doing it for a long time, before the books came out, before this, before that, and you will know. I said, but what I will say is this. Number 2, is that you are going to change your political beliefs when you have a child. And he went, what? And I was like, oh yeah, you're going to change your beliefs. And that's going to entail you losing a lot of friends. Right. And he, look, full respect to him, he didn't push back. And then he called me back 6 months later. He said, you were right. I have half as many friends now. And I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just saying, these things happen. Like, you can't have a kid. It's that old adage, right? You're not a, you're always a liberal when you're younger, and then when you get older and you get sense, you become a conservative. And I think that's the same with fatherhood. I mean, I've seen that change in Russell Brand, right? Like Russell Brand's,
right? Yeah,
it's been remarkable to me.
Maturity. So you're labeling it to the maturity of. I think the phrase is: if you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative when you're old, you have no brain.
Right.
So
yeah, it's a great quote.
Yeah. There's a couple of super chats I want to get to here. These are people who want my attention, so they send money. So we appreciate that. That supports the show. So Debbie's saying, "Good evening, both. Matthew, how was your dinner?" I don't know if did you make a public statement about your dinner?
So she's asking because I've been fasting. I was fasting.
Oh yeah, 72 hours. I saw.
Yeah, it was 72 hours, and I was just thinking, why am I doing this? No, I mean, I walked in, my wife was cooking bacon. I'm like, what is going on? And no, so I actually had some. It was really weird because I went to Costco today, which is just the worst thing to do when you're on a fast. And I bought the weirdest things. Like I was like, oh, crab dip. So my dinner was crab dip.
Really?
I had a little bit of crab dip, which is really random, but it tasted like the greatest crab ever in the world. And so I found, as an actor, you go up and down in weight a lot. Like if you're going to go and do a role, you'll bulk up or you'll lean down and all that. Mm-hmm. And I bulked up for a role I did a few years ago, and lifting really heavy. My strength was crazy. I had a really, really crazy, like followed a strength regime. And then I just was bigger, but I just couldn't drop the weight after that. And I was running and on the Peloton and doing this. And I'm like, why is this? I'm burning like 1,000 calories and I'm still fat. Like I'm still overweight. And I just couldn't drop it. It didn't matter what I was doing. And then I read that somewhere you can fast, and what that will do is it will like reset your blood sugar or your insulin levels. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. So I did it. I think I did it for 4 days.
4 days, no food.
Yeah, no food, just water. And I just dropped, I think it was 15 pounds in that week and the next week, and kept it off. It reset everything. And because I know that you go into autophagy and all these great things start happening when you get up to 72 hours. So today I was like, I might go longer. But the truth is after you go past 72 hours, it's diminishing returns on what you're doing. Right. So I was like, I've got a lot to do this week. It's not like I can sit like at the spa and not eat things. And so I was like, you know what? That's enough. I've done my 72 hours. I'll break. And then, in maybe a couple or 3 or 4 weeks, I'll do it again.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was my dinner. Crab. Yeah. Don't ask me why. Yeah.
I don't know what this means. Maybe you can explain. Up the Baggies from Great Bar.
Yes. That's my soccer team. Yeah. West Bromwich call us the Baggies. So yeah, up the Baggies. Awesome.
Wait, you're a football player?
Soccer.
Nice. Nice. That was a test on revoking your citizenship right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love football.
But you came through with flying colors.
Right. Good. Good. I passed the test. It's part of the citizenship test,
Pinochet says this is the best cult, not a cult, because you'll learn probably later. I follow Matt on X, fan of your work. If you ever have time as an Army vet, I'd love to hear what it was like to work with the loaded cast of and on Black Hawk Down. So that's the only movie you were in that I think I've seen. I'm not going to
right.
So that, and I saw it like I don't know, like shortly after it came out. So I had no idea who you were when you first hit me up on quoted me on social media. But yeah. So what can you tell them about working with the loaded cast of Black Hawk Down?
Well, Black Hawk Down Black Hawk Down changed my life. I mean, not just because of the film that it was, because it was my first movie in Hollywood. I mean, listen, if I'm going to come over and do a movie in Hollywood, I'll do one of the greatest war movies of all time that wins 2 Oscars, right? I mean, in fact, you don't have to watch anything else I've done since then because it's all downhill from there.
I got your best.
But no, I'll tell you a little story that happened to me, and it was the beginning of my progression into understanding what America is. So I grew up loving America. I didn't know why. You know, I know when I was little, oddly enough, I was watching Rocky, and I was from a very, very poor background, lived in government houses, single parent, all that. And I saw Rocky, and I'm like, in America, you can get your shot. You know, if you work hard enough, you can get your shot, and you can make something of yourself. And I was like, well, nobody's going to outwork me. So anyway, cut to, I decide I want to be an actor, which was an impossible dream, right? Nobody does it. I ended up doing it. And I get Black Hawk Down, and we go to Fort Benning, Georgia, and we did, I think it's called Ranger Orientation, not RIP, but it was Ranger Orientation. So what we did was they taught us how to, you know, use a firearm. I got a funny story about that as well. But they taught us how to use a firearm, do room clearance and all this. And then one day we're doing, so when you do room clearance out there, they initially, because we were morons and we didn't know what we were doing, that they put like tape out on the field, and they'd say, this is a door, this is a center fed door, this is a side fed door, this is how you go in, how you peel out, you know, don't worry about, you know, that guy's going to take care of it. And then they put us in the actual facility where you run around, and they have, it's kind of like they call it in England the kill house. So you go in and there's targets there, you go through and you shoot them, and all the time there are guys on the top walking around on planks. So we had to wait our time. So I'm sitting outside under this tree, and there's this kid there, he must have been like 21 years old, and don't forget, this is pre 9/11, right? So we did this in 2000, and I said to him, I'm doing my actor bit, right? I'm like, you know, why did you join the army? And he turns around to me and he goes, for freedom. And I'm like, I've never heard that before. I've just never heard that before. I mean, in Europe, because it's Europe, they'll mock Americans. I'm like, freedom fries and freedom and they put it down. But I'm looking at a guy that's willing to pick up a gun and go and fight for that. Because in the UK, it's kind of like, oh, well, you know, I was either going to get a prison, or I'm going to get in the army, or I want to get a trade, I'm going to go in the army. Nobody's really doing it for England. They might love the Queen, or a lot of them do when they come out. The majority of them do when they come out. And I said to him, you'd die for me, wouldn't you? And he looked me dead in the eye, and he goes, yes, sir. And I went, this is the greatest country in the world, and I need to know why he will do that. I need to know. So that's when I started my my kind of trajectory into founding fathers, the Constitution, what all this means, you know, digging, finding more about the country and why it is the greatest country on the planet. But we then went over to Morocco, and we shot for 6 months, and it was just the greatest experience. All the actors were just brilliant. A lot of them were Brits, because you know, when you're in that situation, you want, when you're doing such a big set piece, which that movie was, with lots of moving parts, the director just wants to know you're going to hit your mark and say your lines, right? He doesn't care about like, oh, I need to, what's my motivation? Your motivation is you're getting paid, dude. Hit the mark, say your lines, get out of here. So he had a lot of Brits, because the majority of us are theatre trained. So that's why we did. You had the majority of Brits on Black Hawk Down, and it was unbelievable experience. And it started my journey on understanding what America is.
That's really interesting, and I definitely want to get into what kind of backwash you've gotten because of your political ideologies in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. But before I get there, I just want to tell you, when you were just describing that, you actually inspired a thought in me that I don't know if I've ever had this thought before, which is, that is to Americans, what distinguishes us, arguably from any other country, is that our heritage is our ideology. Meaning the foundational freedoms, civil liberties, everything that was wrapped in to what the founding fathers baked into the Constitution. That is what we view as our heritage. It's unusual to have a heritage where different peoples from different backgrounds are linked together by an ideology rather than genetics, DNA, or something like that. It's a matter of we feel bound and proud that is our heritage, that we basically are supporting a country which believes in the most virtuous values imaginable. And that's something that I don't know that any other country views himself in that type of light. They look at themselves much more about, I mean, look, we obviously are very into, like, you know, the states and the land itself, but but baked into that love is certainly that recognition of that ideological heritage, which is very different, I think, from most other countries. And that's why I think when we see the corruption that we're seeing now, when we're seeing that ripped apart from the inside, I think in a certain way it's more of an affront than if it's happening in some country where their shared value is not value, but it's their DNA, because we're looking at this as a direct affront to tearing at our ideology by basically twisting things around. It's far more offensive. And that's why I think Americans are that's why I think the West, when we talk about the rest of the Western countries, like the EU, Canada, Australia, where they're more easily shifted towards woke ideology, towards authoritarianism, towards crazy new ideas, as if this is like something that is something that is a healthy way to live, towards the deconstruction of their own nuclear families. Where they're not rooted into an ideology the way Americans naturally are attuned, they're much more swayable. And I think that's perhaps why we've stayed as conservative as we have relative to other Western countries. And I never thought of that before I heard you describing that story. And this guy's saying, that's why I'm doing this. This is who I am. There's a part of who I am is fighting for freedom.
Yeah, I mean, that's the identity. You're not limited. This is why I fight them so hard, is because you're not limited by your color or your race or anything like that. You can't be, because America is amalgamation of all those different things. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's so heinous. By the way, the division that has been caused has been so damaging to the country. And that's, look, I saw this happening in the UK, right? So I've seen it happen. I've seen the way these things occur and what results from them. And I think that's why a lot of immigrants that come here, number one, we appreciate America more than a lot of Americans. Mm-hmm. So I was in a car. True story. I was in a car in San Antonio on Friday night, and I got picked up by an Afghani. And, because, I'm sure you've been in New York, there's a lot of different accents going on, right? It's not mm-hmm. like some parts of the world where you don't hear different accents. So
yours, I'm picking up Ricky Gervais, by the way. There's a lot of different British accents, but yours is completely a Ricky Gervais type of British accent versus a Russell Brand, which is completely different from that.
Yeah, Russell is, he talks like, hey, Danny. He talks like, hey, Danny, Russell. Yeah. But so I'm in the car with this Afghani, and I always like to talk to them, right? Because I'm a human being that likes interaction. And mm-hmm. I said to him, oh, where are you from? He goes, Afghanistan. And he goes, I came here legally. And he said, and you know what? And so he was really mad at the illegals. Really, really mad.
Of course they are. Of course they're mad. They stood in line for 4 years, 5 years, and these jackasses are basically walking across a few hundred miles, and it's like, boom, I'm an American, get the same privileges.
Well, this guy as well, think about this. He got 5 kids because the Taliban, because of the amazing withdrawal that Biden did. his kids are still there because he can't get them here. Because guess what? The immigration system is clogged up, so he can't process his papers. So his family is stuck in Afghanistan after we went over there and we fought over there for 20 odd years. And he hasn't seen his kids in multiple years. And I just said to him, I said, I'm really, really sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But this is a guy that would say, I'm an American. That's why when people say to me online, and they might think it's stupid, but I'll say, I'm an American. Don't call me a Brit. I'm an American. I'm an American. My kids are American. They're not half Maltese. They're not half British. They're American children because, and this is why they should absolutely outlaw foreign languages in schools. It should not be, you should not be able to speak Spanish in schools. I don't care what anybody says, because if you come here, you need to assimilate and be a part of this. And it's got nothing to do with racism, obviously. It's got to do with completely the opposite to that. We got to coalesce and come together. And the language is the first thing. You can keep you can keep your kind of traditions and everything. That's great, right? But multiculturalism does not work. It does not work. So we need to, one of the first things I saw.
Diversity is our strength. Diversity is our strength.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I don't know. Yeah.
No one's ever explained how. No one's ever explained how is diversity our strength. I don't get it. It doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's a phrase they just throw out there that it's like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. We can use that.
The left owns language.
Yeah.
We
I was
kind
saying
of
this 2 days ago, but
oh my gosh, I mean, they do. They just come out and say stuff, and everyone kind of goes, "Oh, okay," and you're like, "No. You can't let them have that."
No.
I was going to say something, and I know I can't talk about it because you told me, but they will call you something and brand you it, and just keep saying it and saying it and saying it. You just got, that's not what I am. That's not what I am. That's not what I am. And a lot of people
that can say. I don't care if you say that. The one thing I told him not to say is I was like, just no medical stuff. I just don't.
Well, it is a medical thing. It's anti-something.
Oh,
and I'm like, hang on a minute. How can you call me that? Like, but they just hammer you with it. But they do it. They own the language, and they're very, very smart. Yeah. With doing it, right? Like pro-life, pro-choice. Yeah. Dumbest thing ever. Like nobody should ever agree to that. Ever.
No, it's so what would you call it?
Well, it's like, why are you anti-choice, Joe? Why are you anti-choice? And you're like, I'm done. I can't. How can I argue that? I'm done. No, it's like you're either abortion or pro-life or non-abortion. It's as simple as that. Right. So they do this all the time. And then we stupidly play along with it. Like, here's another one. Migrant.
Yeah.
No. Illegal.
Yeah.
Although
colonizers, they call us colonizers. They do it over and over again. We see Washington churn out the same crap also. That bill that, thank God, got rejected by the Senate was the Southern Border Security Bill. Like, it literally... I don't know if you went through the terms of the bill. I'm a lawyer, so what I do here a lot of times, I'll break this stuff down into what it's actually saying. And I went through it online here, showing them the text of the bill, and this is what this means, and this is what that means, and walking them through it. Forgetting about the fact that it's $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion for Israel, and far more spent on, and only $20 billion spent on the southern border. It actually requires the president of the United States to allow in 42,000 illegal immigrants when we close the border. Even if it's closed, you must allow in 42,000 illegal aliens. And it's just astonishing that the GOP, that's they're on our side. They're completely on our side. Yeah, they're not at all.
Are they?
Yeah. No. Yeah. The way they and Langford, where he came out there. In fact, I'm gonna pull up a clip of him here with this schmuck. Where are you, Langford? Here's him whining about it. You want to hear him whining about this today? James Langford. He's the Oklahoma senator who was part of the negotiation team. He's the GOP guy who was pitching this crap, and he's sitting here saying about how it was the best bill in the world. Look at this schmuck.
Some of them may have policy differences. Some of them have been very clear with me. They have political differences with the bill. They say it's the wrong time to solve the problem, or let the presidential election solve this problem. In fact, I had a popular commentator 4 weeks ago that I talked to that told me flat out, before they knew any of the contents of the bill, any of the content, nothing was out at that point, that told me flat out, if you try to move a bill that solves the border crisis during this presidential year, I will do whatever I can to destroy you. Because I do not want you to solve this during the presidential election.
Lie. I don't believe this conversation ever happened. I am positive this never happened. You want to know why? Because they don't know how to solve it. They don't know how to solve it. So no one will be afraid, oh, maybe you're going to solve the crisis. This is a flat out crap lie. He's basically trying to say that the only reason this thing got tanked is because MAGA, that's what he's trying to say, because MAGA wants Trump elected. That's what this lie is. And the way I know it's a lie is because nobody from MAGA would be concerned that Congress and the President Biden are going to figure out some way to actually fix this crisis. No one has like, oh no, maybe they're going to solve the border crisis and that'll keep Trump from getting elected. No, this is a complete and total lie. No one said that to him. That never happened. But I do think that this guy should be removed from Congress as soon as possible because he literally was trying to write into law that whoever's president in 2025, even if it's Trump, that he's obligated by law to allow in 40,000 illegal aliens every single month. And also that if he wants to litigate it and try shutting it down, that he has to go to DC Circuit Court, which is the most hostile court to Trump in the world. That's where like they keep somehow he magically ends up like by random chance ending up in front of Judge Pan, who's sitting there whose husband is literally campaigning to try and destroy Trump, and yet she sits on all of his cases. Every case that comes in before the DC Circuit, she ends up sitting on it and ruling against him every single freaking time, obviously. And now this schmuck over here, this uniparty schmuck, James Langford from the GOP, who's all about conservatism, is writing a bill that would require Trump to allow in 40,000 illegals every single freaking month. And that if he tries fighting it, he'd have to end up in front of a judge like Judge Pan, if not Judge Pan herself, to try and say that, to try and debate whether or not he has the right as president of the United States to actually close the border like his job requires. Sorry.
No, I mean,
I'll
listen.
rant a little bit. So.
No, listen. I'm an immigrant here, and I did it the right way. And I've got a son, my oldest son, over in the UK because he was over there, and he's not an American citizen. He's an adult child of a naturalized citizen. He has to wait 4 years to come here. Mm-hmm. 4 years, yep. Right? But these guys can walk over 40,000.
The shortcut is if you fly into Quito, Ecuador, and then you march across. You march across the Darien Gap. And you find a way to survive that. Then you march basically up through Nicaragua and Guatemala and then Mexico, and then you can walk across the border and everything's just hunky-dory.
It is so infuriating. I mean, you can't have a country if you don't have any borders. And look, we're going to be hit with a terrorist attack at some point, and it's going to be someone that's come over the border, because if you're a foreign nation and you wanted to hit America, and for the longest time, right, we've had the seaboards that have, you got, big oceans on either side that have done a good job of keeping people from coming in, but now they can just walk over and nobody cares. One of the things that I just want to make this point, and I know it's not relevant to anybody that is watching this, right, because they're obviously engaged, but when I moved here to Dallas with my friend Matt Peterson, we were in a dinner party, and we were like, "You guys don't understand. Like, they're gonna do it here. Like, they're coming for Texas. They've got this and that and this," and everyone's looking at us like, "Who are they? These crazy people? Like, who are these crazy?" And we was like, "No, you don't understand. They're coming for the kids. They're gonna get into the education system. They're gonna. We've seen it in California. We know where they work. Blah 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 blah." And everyone looked at us like we were maniacs.
Yep.
1 year later, right? 1 year later, they were all like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, we're seeing this, we're seeing that." And we were like,
"Hello. Good morning."
You have to be engaged. So the thing is this, the days are over where you could coast through this and let other people do all the work for you. It's over. Like, in my opinion, this is since I've been coming here, I've seen people go, "This is the most important election of our lifetime." And I'm like, no.
Every election.
But this really is the most important election of our lifetime after the last one. So you cannot, it's like you can't put your parenting on to someone else. you have to be involved in this instance. You've got to get involved. You have to go and look at every single local race. You've got to see what's going on. And like you said, that guy, Massey, gone. It's Massey, right? That was the guy that you just spoke about?
Oh, that was James Langford.
Langford, sorry, Langford.
Yeah.
Langford, gone. He's got to go.
Yeah.
And because what happens in the 24-hour news cycle is that, you know, we're constantly bombarded with new things. So things go. But if you've noticed, they don't do that on that on the left. They just hold on to one thing and they're like, bang, bang, bang. We're going to keep hitting you with it over and over and over and over and over again. And so what happens with us is something comes and it goes and we forget about it. Right? It's just it's gone. We're moving on to the next thing because most of us have productive lives and we have to go and provide for our families. But there's not going to be a country for you to provide for. Your kids are not going to grow up in a functioning country if this continues. So you have to get involved. Otherwise, you will have to get involved at some point because they're going to force you to. Yeah. So you have to do it now and get involved in all these elections. It is, 22 million, they reckon, are here. 22 million.
I'll tell you this much. You're right that my audience is engaged because they wouldn't be here if they weren't engaged. You're not sitting there on a Wednesday evening watching a political show, or a show that's largely political. And it's like, look, I try to throw in some entertainment here, and some law, but it's a largely political show. And you wouldn't be sitting there choosing this as your form of entertainment if not for the fact that you have already liked, shared, subscribed, and joined goodlogic.locals.com, but also that you're already engaged. So, what I would recommend is this: don't do it the way he did it because that was stupid. You scare people off. The healthiest way to get what people call, it's a stupid term, but they call normies, which he's basically Matthew's making a great point here, that the age of people being classified as normies is over. It's over. And you're seeing that it's the messaging has invaded our culture. It's invaded our schools. It's invaded science, for crying out loud. Whether it's medicinal, whether it's about climate, it's everywhere, and it's affecting us on a day-by-day basis. But if you run around screaming to people who are trying desperately to remain politically disaffected, they look at you as if you're some crazy MAGA lunatic. It has to be more subtle than that. You basically have to pick your moments and just sort of take opportunities to talk to people. Not that this is like something that they know that the second they meet you, you're going to be like, you got to vote for Trump. Otherwise, no, it's got to be much more subtle than that. It's got to be like, look, this is the situation. This is what we're dealing with here. Are you happier now with the way the border is going? Do you think that there's no problems that are gonna arise from that? Or are you happier with saying let's just allow the legal immigration process? Everyone's fine with the legal immigration process of 1 million a year. It's just that when it rises up to 4 million, 5 million a year, that's when things are kind of crazy at a certain point, especially when we don't know who or where they are. That's kind of insane. So,
well, you're having people, by the way, that are being personally affected by it, and that's when it gets real, right? When you saw the thing with the Martha's Vineyard, where Gregory Abbott or DeSantis bust up to there, and all of a sudden they were like, "Oh yes, we love illegals, we love them." Oh, not in my backyard, thank you very much. Can you come and get them? Can you come and get the army to come and get them? Can you take them away? It has to be like they're such frauds.
Yeah,
they are absolute frauds. So it has to be personal. I had the
acronym is NIMBY, not in my backyard. That's the acronym. That's the acronym for when people are like, oh yeah, I'm all about making sure that we have everything completely equitable. There's got to be equity. There's got to be equity. But oh my gosh, I don't want next door neighbors.
not there, not in my house. I had it's funny you should talk about the way you approach things with people. So I did a film last year in the UK. I hadn't been back for a really long time, and so I went over there and I was like, oh man, they've probably seen me on Twitter and this is going to be kind of awkward because people don't look, I never wanted to be political. They chose a fight with me. That was it. So, what are you going to do? But, so I go over there and one of the actresses there, who was really sweet, she was really nice, but she said, you live in Texas? Yeah. You got guns? Yeah. Why do people have guns? I mean, I just, and then boom, off on it. And I went, if you want to drive from California to Texas, it takes you 10 hours to drive from California to Texas, and you go through a bunch of states. Then you get to the edge of Texas, and it takes you 10 hours to drive from the edge of Texas to Dallas. Now, in that space, some people are 2 hours away from seeing a policeman. So you got to remember, if I was going to do that drive, I could probably drive across the entirety of Europe, right? A 10-hour drive would certainly take me through France and Belgium and Holland and a good swathe across, right? I said, but what about the people that are 2 hours? They're going to call a cop, and it's a 2-hour ride for the cop to get there. And she went, oh, I guess you're right. I was like, yeah. And by the way, I'm a big guy, right? I'm a big guy. The great equalizer is a firearm. If you had one, like there's no way that she could physically stop me, right? If I was going to try and assault her in any way, shape, or form, which of course I wouldn't. There's no way she could stop me, but she could if she had a gun. And for a minute there was this flash that was, oh, I never thought of it like that. And she said that to me. Oh, total reversal, because I put it onto what would she do if she was in this situation, right? And we say this all the time about, well, the politicians want to ban guns, but they have armed guards. Like in Hollywood, they have giant
security
walled compounds and security. So of course they can say that other people don't need to have a firearm because they don't see it. They're in their little bubble. They don't understand real life. So I think that the way you couch the argument and the way you approach people is really, really important. And you have to be mindful of that. And like you say, you can't go in there like a bull in a china shop. Even if you, in your head, it's like raging. It's like raging in there to get out. You can't do that. You have to kind of figure out a way of positioning the whole argument and yourself.
And I love the way you did that, because you put yourself in her shoes. And what I actually thought of when you said that, one of the things I'm enjoying about this conversation is you're inspiring thought in me. And yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it.
Well, me too.
Thank you. No, so like, another argument that you could have made to her, because the left is all about believing that America is a rape culture, that there's a rape culture in this country. So if you actually really believe that that's true, that's either false or you believe it's true, which means you're basically saying you think that women are in danger of being raped. Well, if that's the case, shouldn't women carry a gun?
Carry a gun.
I mean, wouldn't that make the most sense to you, that they should be able to protect themselves? I don't want to see a woman get attacked. I don't want to see women getting assaulted, having them violated in the worst ways possible. Do you want to see that, or you want to have them, allow them the opportunity, encourage them to embrace that freedom that our Second Amendment gives us, that they have a right to protect themselves?
Well, it's funny because the strange thing about what's going on in Hollywood right now is the rise of the girl boss, right? The Mary Sue, where like Rey in Star Wars, any Star Wars fans out there, is that she's super, super, super powerful. Like she doesn't have anything to overcome. She never has to get anywhere. Right, they're all super powerful.
Every
right?
one of them. Yeah.
Every one of them. But that's not real life, right? So if you really want women to have power, let them have a gun. Like advocate for a gun. Don't advocate for taking a gun away, because you can be sure that the criminal is going to have one. Right, for the most part. So it's the same thing when people argue that, well, how'd you feel about this? There's a picture of like a black family with a M4 and whatever, and you're like,
awesome.
I think that's great. I'm sorry, just because their color is different to me, that doesn't matter. That is the least interesting. I would say it's the least interesting thing about you is the color of your skin. Like those immutable characteristics are the least important thing about you, or the least interesting thing about you. I don't care, right? We're all like, yeah, give them the guns, like please. Yeah. We want them to be sufficient so they can defend themselves.
And if you don't feel comfortable with it, wouldn't you want your friend who likes you, who might be with you, and also might not be that big a person, to be carrying one? I mean, just like think common sense, that you want the good people. You want the good people to be armed. We all want the good people to be armed. It's like it's so aggravating. So Law of Self-Defense was asking this. Anybody read the Gina Carano complaint this week? Canceled by Disney because of her political speech. Thank God she got Elon's backing. Amen. And I actually if you look at my stream from last night, I spent the last hour reading through her entire complaint from soup to nuts. So you mentioned that Gina Carano, right?
I do, yeah.
All right. So she has famously been blackballed from Hollywood because she's not sufficiently woke. Now, it's interesting because I don't even know that she's that right wing. Like the stuff that she said just shows that she has a spine and that and that she refuses to say things or do things because people are telling her that they want her to do them. In other words, she had her whole problem that she's considered a transphobe, not because she said anything against trans communities or anyone going trans. She just refused to put pronouns in her bio, so that made her a problem. She refused to contribute money to BLM, which I guess means that she didn't want to pay any of her salary to Patricia McCullers, as if giving money to BLM is like doing anything to help a single Black person ever, other than Patricia McCullers and the other 3 cohorts who founded BLM, but who are wealth beyond belief because they did so. But so she's definitely facing massive backlash. Have you experienced similar backlash?
Yeah, so many years ago, so I'd just done Rambo. I'd finished that in 2008, and then I went and did Transformers, the second one, in 2010, and I was asked to go to raise money for a film, and I was like, okay, because at that point, I'd just done 2 big films. I'd done a big television show as well with Walter Hill that was my own pilot, so that looked like that was going for Spike Television at the time. And so I went out and I said, okay, just for some friends to make some family-friendly movies. And it was a Republican gathering. And back then I wasn't really political, I mean, I had my beliefs, but I wasn't like fully engaged in the American political system. I was still on my kind of journey about how amazing America is, right? Mm-hmm. All the time, while like also going, I'm in Hollywood making big movies. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And the Huffington Post did an article on me, and it was devastating to my career. So I was actually the OG cancel guy. It's just that, 13 years have passed and I didn't make a big fuss about it. I didn't come out and say anything about it because I just wanted to get on with it. And the article was mainly a hit piece on other people, but I was like collateral damage for that. And it wrecked my career. It stopped me in my tracks. And I know a lot of people looked at that and they were like, oh my goodness me, I better keep my gob shut. I'm not going to go anywhere. And the problem is, I'm so glad for Gina that, she's got the richest man in the world behind her and she's fearless, right? She's an amazing person as well. She's such a sweetheart. But they do this stuff with impunity, and yet because what am I going to gain? I'm going to go against them. I'm going to go after them. And then what they're going to do, they're just going to go, okay, well, I'm not going to hire you again. Mm-hmm. And then where'd you go? Right. Where am I going to go? Because it's a weird thing. So just so people know, the reason why you see all the same people in the movies over and over again is because they have a quote, right? They have a quote and they have attached to them a financial amount that they can make. Their name gives them from whether it be foreign distribution or domestic distribution. So if you're like Brad Pitt and you can make $10 million a movie, he probably brings in on average $30 million, $40 million. We can guarantee him domestic and probably more than that international. So that's how they figure out their numbers, right? So you're going to keep plugging and playing those characters in, those people into the different roles. If you start dropping from that, then the offers stop coming, right? Less and less and less and less.
When you say dropping from that, you mean the amount of draw that you are?
Yeah. So if you miss a couple of movies for a couple of years, you go cold and your quote isn't as high. Unless you're like Daniel Day-Lewis and everybody wants you and he's just picks and chooses what he wants to do. But if it's called being hot. It's literally being hot. Is he hot?
Right.
Is he? That's why you see someone will go and do. It used to be you do a little movie and then everyone's after him. It's like a feeding frenzy. But if you drop off there, then it's over for you. Nobody's gonna come knocking the door.
Right.
So you might be of a certain stature. You might have done whatever the movies are that you've done that are really
Kind of like
big.
what we saw with Johnny Depp, right? Like where he was like he was red hot after Jack Sparrow, but then like after now no one's looking at him as being the same type of draw as they were after the second Jack Sparrow movie. So
well, now they're gonna reboot it and have a female cast.
Yeah,
that's gonna go really well.
You saw that today on Twitter.
Yeah.
Also?
Yeah, I'm just like, what are you doing? It's like Disney. It's almost like they want to go bankrupt. I just, and I've said this all along. Like, stop race swapping. Just write great material for different races. That's fine. Like, don't be lazy, and stop. Changing these like the Ghostbusters. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Like, there's enough material there that you can do if you really want to, but they don't. They're lazy. But going back to what you're saying about Johnny Depp, yeah. The thing is that cancel culture is really real. So when I stood up in the past few years, I don't know how much you can talk about in the past few years against tyranny.
Right. Well done. I see what you did there.
You like that?
Yeah.
So I used to get emails from or texts from guys in the industry, and they're like, "Hey Matt, listen, like totally respect you for what you're doing, and it's great." And I'm like, "Yeah. Why are you still making $150,000 an episode on your television show? Good, well done. You're and you get to the point where you're like, well, when are you going to say something? Like
Show some freaking balls.
All these bullshit like tough guys who are like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, you don't have a spine. You don't have a spine because you don't stand up for what is right.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a point where you have to, and certainly. They're very smart because I don't know how old I was when that happened. So it's like 13 years ago. So I'm 50, coming 51. So, you can do the math, right? So I was in my mid 30s, like peak time. And they just took me off the playing field, like poof, gone. And you're not going to come back for that. You can't. And so what you do is you look at people that are aligned with you and you go, well, they make really bad material. Like their movies are terrible. So I don't really want to do that. And as we were saying before, before we came on air, like I tried to get someone to buy MGM. MGM was for sale for $500 million. And this back then, I was like, listen, you've got to get involved in the culture because politics, everything else is downstream from culture. You have to get involved in it. Like, oh, well, it seems like a lot of money. Now, I don't know how much MGM's worth. But now Elon is going, maybe I'll buy Disney.
Yeah.
That will be just a game changer for the world.
That is how it started with Twitter. It started with him just sort of musing, like, I don't know, maybe. Although I'll tell you this much. It's to me, look, and I'm very appreciative for the way Elon has opened stuff up. I don't really buy that we can like basically trust that this is like the modern day Messiah, that Elon is going to remain based, that it's like the idea that we were sitting here, and I can understand the natural inclination saying, look, he's much better than we have going on, so we really want him to be in control of everything here. But it's like, first and foremost, he's one man, he has a lifespan of whatever. I mean, how long is he going to be, yeah, I look at it as a country. We need to look at policies, not look at one man as a savior of the nation, and that he's not even. I just don't. I think that there's way too much investment in that Elon's going to be the savior. I'm very appreciative for what he did with buying Twitter, or which he renamed X. But to me, I'm very concerned, and I understand why you would push him and say, "Hey, look, get Disney, and I agree with you 100% what you're saying, that everything's downstream from culture. Culture changes our attitude, changes everything. It changes everything about our perspectives and things, and that what we're seeing happening with Hollywood is an attempt to radicalize Americans into thinking that bizarre perspectives are the norm, they're the mainstream, they're healthy, and they're the more moral way of looking at things. That if you take a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old who says, "I think I'm a girl," and you cut off his private bits, that's the moral thing to do. So I agree with you that they're trying to poison our minds through culture. So I get it. I get everything that you're saying there. I'm so loath to say, like, like treat him like he's Obi-Wan, and it's like, help us.
Oh, no. No, I don't think that at all. In fact, some of the stuff he's said about the Neuralink and all that.
That should freak you
uncool.
out.
It's uncool. I actually wrote a screenplay about a guy that it was a horror film. I won't go into too much, but about a chip that goes into the brain. It was a horror film. It was like the worst thing that could happen. So I think the point is this, is that I'm exactly like you. I actually don't think that you should make anyone into gods. I see politically, I don't understand it. I'm like, look, I don't know why you guys think that these people walk on water. I think they're human. I think the majority of politicians are corrupt in one way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but the majority of them. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Mm-hmm. But Elon's the first one that said that he would do it. And I've been saying forever, it's like when I talk, I go on X and I say to people, we need to build an independent studio. Everyone goes, what about the Daily Wire? And I go, what about the Daily Wire? What about the Daily Wire? It doesn't matter. Like, you've got Universal, Warner Brothers, Disney, there's Sony, there's a Lionsgate, there's a bunch of them. But we tend to be lazy and go, which is, to your point, it's like, well, Elon's got like $1 kajillion. He can buy Disney. I'd love him to buy it, just because right now it's so wacky and you can't put your kids in front of the television anymore. But does that mean that we shouldn't have other people doing other stuff? We absolutely should. And I've been trying to tell people, look, I don't want to watch Christian movies. They bore me. They're really bad for the most part, unless they're made by Mel Gibson. And the majority of conservative stuff that comes out is very poor. And part of that is because the people that go out to make it, they know how to get the money from the investors, and they press the right buttons. And it's a grift to me. We need to make movies like It's a Wonderful Life. We need to make quality films like The Godfather or whatever. Original. Right? Yeah. Right now, it's a win if you have a dad in a movie, right? Like, look at how many films are like, well, the dad left and he's a loser and this. I'm like, can we just actually have a movie where a dad is present? You know what I mean? And the family is
also not the idiot of the family. Like, it's like every straight white male that they have up there is like, can't figure out how to match his own socks, is a bumbling clod, or either a terrible human being, or at best, like he's like a joke as far as being any type of role model.
That is intentional.
Yeah, of course.
Well. It's absolutely intentional.
Of course it is.
I mean, I've been in the room. So I was trying to explain this to someone the other day. Do you remember that the controversy with the movie Cuties?
Yeah.
You remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to remember this.
Those who don't know this, Netflix made a production about where basically they were very much sexualizing children. This was grooming. This was classic.
Yeah.
This was terrible. And it was basically practically extolling the virtue of sexualizing children.
It was unbelievable. So here's what you got to remember. Somebody wrote the screenplay. That screenplay went to a producer. So firstly, screenwriter wrote it. Now, he might not have written it the way that they finally got it to, but that had to then go to the production, who then had to go to the director. There's multiple different layers. The director then had to go to the financier or the studio to get the money. Then they had to make it. And to make it, they had to go and get a casting director that would go and get those kids to come and do those things. They'd have to get a choreographer that would go and do those things. Then they would have to go and get a makeup artist that was there. There was every single person that was involved in it. It was multi-layered all the way to the top when it went out. That's not just one person.
No.
Like, that is, and I'm sure somebody walked off it, but can you imagine the dysfunction that is there within, and for somebody to go, yeah, you go, that's a good thing. Let's have, I don't know how old they were. Like, 11-year-old girls like behave like
I
strippers.
mean, they were portraying 11-year-old girls. I'm sure that none of them were over 15. I mean, I'd be shocked if any of them were of the age of majority. I mean, yeah, it's horrific.
It's disgusting. I mean,
Horrific.
I don't understand. So people should have looked at that and gone, do you know what? This is it. Like, it's like the Bud Light moment, right? You got to say, this is enough. I mean, in fact, this is worse than the Bud Light moment. They should have said, that's it, I'm done. And we do not work together like the left does. We don't. I don't know what it is. I mean, the part of it of being a conservative is that you're a rugged individual, right? You're going off and you're doing your thing, and that's awesome and everything. But there does come a time when you got to come together to fight evil. You have to do it. And there's a lot of people out there that are going, hey guys, I'm out here, right? I'm trying to, and certainly for me in Hollywood, I've been doing it for a long time now, because I've just been so sick of it and seeing what is going on behind the scenes. And what happens with people like me, like Nick Searcy, and people that have actually done something in the industry, we get pushed out, because we can go into these situations with certain production companies and we go, that's not how it's done, right? And they don't like that, because they're making money. And that's why you get crappy films, right? The one thing about Hollywood is that it is a machine, and it's an absolute oiled, like, tight machine that knows how to put propaganda out, right? It just does. And here's the thing. I just want to say this. If Matthew McConaughey wanted to run, certainly for the governor of Texas, it's over, right? He's going to win. Even if The Rock decided to run for president, he's going to win, right? Because, again, I'm going to break this down for your audience. Hollywood spends about $3 billion a year on promotion, right? $3 billion, right? So if you think you got an actor like Matthew McConaughey, that's why they want actors that have certain kind of views out. Because if you have someone like Matthew McConaughey and he's running for president, or he's thinking about running for president, he's got 25 years of hundreds of millions of dollars of promotion behind him. He's got name recognition that you couldn't get as a politician. It'd be impossible, which is why when Trump said he was going to run,
1,000 times the popularity of any politician.
It's not even close. You can't. They would not be able to battle against him. I mean, think about how much they spend on Senate rates, $150 million. You couldn't do it. He would absolutely smash everybody. It wouldn't even matter what he's. Look, when Trump announced in 2016, right, or whenever it was, for the 2016 election, I turned around to all my friends. I went, he's going to win. And they were like, what are you talking about? I said, listen, he's going to win. He's been on television for 17 years. The guy has the most name recognition. And by the way, he's amazing in front of camera. He knows how to improvise.
Yeah.
All the other stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because he's going to go out there and he's going to be able to spar like he did. Do you remember on that bit with Hillary Clinton? Because you'll be in jail.
Yeah.
It was just genius. He was just absolute genius. But people didn't expect that. Yet, if you look at, apart from, Joe Biden, the meat puppet, they go to Hollywood. The left goes to Hollywood to ask them to do their productions, to do their promos, to coach their politicians. They're not stupid, right? We have the same old farts coming in that have presided over people losing for forever. Right. Because again, it's an industry, right? You've seen that. It's an industry. Yeah. And we don't get it, because we think that, sorry for my little rant, but we think,
no, it's okay.
We think that the best ideas win, and it's just not true. This is what I got into this weekend. Look, it doesn't matter what your principles. It's not about that.
It's all about likability. It's about whether or not people can relate to you. That's really what it's about. I mean, think of how hard they tried to push Hillary down our throats in 2016, but she was so unlikable, just so unlikable that she was gifted the presidency, gifted it. I mean, it couldn't have been more gift wrapped than it was for her. And she was so unlikable, because likability is everything. And that's why you're right. Someone like a Matthew McConaughey would run a heartbeat.
It'd be over. I mean, he's and one of them will. I thought that The Rock was going to run. I know it sounds stupid, but Mark my words on this. You'll see him
We're
one day.
living
he
in
will run.
idiocracy here. We're gonna have like, what was that president's name? That fucker.
I'm just looking forward to the Bulworth one. That's what I want. I want the one that's just going to say everything, you know.
So I'm also streaming to Rumble, and someone sent what's called a Rumble rant there. Breck Nichols says, Matthew, hello from a fellow Dallasite. Question: are you any relation to Jerry Marsden of Jerry and the Pacemakers?
Do you know what? I'm glad he said that and not James Marsden, because I get James Marsden all the time. I'm not at all, actually, unfortunately. And if you guys don't know, Jerry
James
Marsden.
Wait, James Marsden, was he the guy from Buffy?
I don't know if he was on
played
Buffy, but he was
Spike.
Cyclops. He was Cyclops.
Oh, okay. No, there was a guy, there was a British guy, James.
Oh,
Marsden?
no. I think his name is Masters. James
Oh,
Masters.
but James Marsden, you're correct. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah,
Close.
sorry,
Marsden,
my
Masters,
apologies.
tomato,
Yeah,
tomato,
it's
whatever.
all you British people look alike. So
So racialist, man.
Debbie wants to know, are you going to do a watch party for Tucker Putin tomorrow? I mean, at the time of original airing, I think 6 p.m. So yeah, I actually like this idea a lot, and after this I'm going to talk to you about your thoughts about him interviewing Putin. But I'm going to tell you that tomorrow at 10 a.m. I will be streaming oral arguments from Supreme Court regarding Trump's eligibility to be on the ballot in Colorado. That's going to be at 10 a.m. and I'm going to be streaming that right here on YouTube and on Rumble. The Tucker Putin interview, I'm probably going to do that as a locals at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. I'm probably going to do it that way at 6 p.m. And then I'll be streaming tomorrow evening at 10 p.m. as well. So I got a busy day tomorrow. 10 a.m. is SCOTUS. 6 p.m. is Tucker and Putin. And 10 p.m. is my regular show. So, question for you: what are your thoughts about interviewing the dictator, Vladimir Putin?
Look, I think that we know who he is, right? We know who Putin is. And I don't think that all of a sudden we're going to be like massively charmed by him and go, oh, all of a sudden, all is forgiven. I forget that you're KGB.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we should hear. Look, you know, I was fortunate enough to go and be interviewed by Tucker, and he's I don't know if you know him, but he's a terrific fella. Like he really is, and he's fearless. And I think it's the right thing. I mean, look, I don't think we should be sending money anywhere. I think it's kind of like having no money to pay your mortgage and just like giving everyone ice cream every day. Like, I don't understand that mentality. So I think it's really important in a fair and free press to show the other side.
Right.
So I don't see the problem. And when I see the EU saying we're going to sanction him, I'm like, hang on a minute. Like, you're really showing your hand now, right? This is journalism.
Yeah, no one said anything to the BBC when they interviewed Putin a few years back, but apparently now Tucker needs to be sanctioned. I don't really even understand the argument of that. I do expect this. I have a feeling the concern is this, that a lot of what he says is going to resonate with and sound very similar to ideologies that overlap in various ways with a MAGA perspective.
Yeah, of course.
That's what they're very, very afraid of, that we're going to basically grow to really resent the whole thing on Ukraine when we say, I probably agree more ideologically with Putin than I do with Zelensky. And I'm not saying that's how I feel. I'm saying this. I'll tell you this. I was actually looking up Putin because I'm like, I don't know anything about him. Like I was like, I really know nothing about who he is as a person. And I know everyone's been telling me for decades that he's a terrible human being and all these atrocities that he's done. And I'm like, I don't even know what atrocities people are claiming that he's done. Like, I was like, I really know next to nothing about him other than the fact that he's had, in America, he's had really, really terrible PR and possibly, I'll even say likely, well-earned terrible PR for being a piece of crap. And he probably is an evil, evil, terrible human being. I just don't, it's like, this is what's so pathetic. I have so little trust for my media and for my government that I'm like, everything that I always just took as a given, when I look back on it, I'm like, well, how do I know this to be true? How do I know that to be true? And how do I know what is truth anymore? And I need to see it with my own eyes to really feel like I have any sort of grip, even about something as basic as the concept of Putin is evil. So is he evil? I don't know, probably. But I really, for the first time in my life, I was actually starting to question. I was like, how do I know this? Look, they say that he basically has ripped away the right to elections. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. That he's, if you there's no free speech in Russia. That sounds consistent with everything I've heard about Russia my entire life. Yeah, which we thought would go away, I guess, when the wall came down, and apparently it hasn't under Putin. So look, is he an authoritarian dictator? Yeah, I know. I'll tell you this much: I think he's got a lot more belief in the nuclear family than our president.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a thing, isn't it? What I don't like about this at all is if you want to question anything, and this is part and parcel of it, right? If you want to question anything, if you say, well, maybe he's got a point because he wanted a buffer for NATO, he didn't want NATO like bumping up against him.
Mhm.
You're a Putin apologist. I'm like, no, actually, no, I'm not. I'm just looking at the situation. Can I do that without you smearing me to
Right.
shut me up?
Right.
And I think that's the thing. We're at a point where if there was a more of a fair media, then perhaps we wouldn't need Tucker to go over there. We'd be like, okay, right. I mean, there weren't anyone, not that I can remember, like running over and interviewing Saddam Hussein, right, or
Right.
or Gaddafi or whatever. So, and again, talking about that, like, and I hate to say this because I love this country deeply, and it's only in the last few years when I've started thinking this is like, you know, that GIF, is it, where it's like the Germans where they're like, "Are we the baddies?"
That is.
I got to say it, like we droned a kid in wherever it was and killed a
Really, yeah.
16-year-old. You know, so we don't. I say we. I'm not talking about the American people. I'm talking about the government. Is we don't really have a leg to stand on when we point the finger anymore and say that those guys are bad, because we've been doing some pretty horrendous stuff ourselves in recent years. So I think at the end of the day, like you said, they are worried because he's probably going to make a lot of sense. Right, he's probably going to say, "I don't want anyone invading or coming close to my borders." He'll probably say, well, "How would you like it if, you know, I park my tanks in Mexico?"
Yeah.
We wouldn't like it.
How did we call it the Cuban Missile Crisis when they put them 90 miles away in Cuba? They put nukes 90 miles away in Cuba, and Kennedy, and there was a whole freak out, which was, people look back as Kennedy's shining moment when he got Russia to back down, because we were so annoyed at the idea of being 90 miles away. So the idea of being on his doorstep, especially after all the promises we purportedly made to not move closer and closer toward Russia with NATO, which we completely said, oh, we changed our mind on that.
And by the way, can we at least have the discussion about the fact that Ukraine is corrupt? I mean, can we not have this discussion anymore? Is it? I think this is at the crux of the issue, right? Is that we want free speech. We want to be able to ask a question. And certainly if our money is going over there, we should be able to ask that question. It's our money.
And
yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, you're correct, which is the point that Tucker was making when he was saying why he wants to do this interview. I'll tell you this much. I think this whole thing ultimately, the war between Russia and Ukraine, is it about border security for Russia? Possibly. I question the nobility of America, which it was very hard for me to come to that, because I grew up, the main part of my life was in the 80s. As I've explained to my audience here, when I was growing up, like the culture that you talk about as being so important, what was seeded into my brain is America is pure good. Everything we do is good, is virtuous. It's Rocky versus Drago. It's like we are always the good guys, and we're the personification of everything right, virtuous, and moral. Russia is the personification of everything evil, corrupt, Satan, and and along with the Middle East, that there's a lot of terrible that sort of got morphed over towards Islam after 9/11, somewhat, as far as filling that void of who's the foil for America to destroy, and or battle the foe that we need to overcome. And this awakening, which I feel like I've had over the last 7 to 10 years, where I'm like, I don't really think that we really are always the good ones. And I think that a lot of our motivation for many of the wars we've had since World War II are likely more about money than about anything else. And I suspect that Putin, his motivation is about money also. And I think the reason the EU hates him, I know the reason the EU hates him, one of the reasons they hate him is because of money. Because they basically, when Ukraine separated, this is what I saw a long time ago. I need to find the source on this. And when Ukraine, when the Soviet Union broke apart, Russia basically said, okay, Ukraine, you're rich in natural resources. When you farm anything out, we need to have right of first refusal. And that ended up serving as like a Russian tax on anything they were sending out to the EU. So I don't know what the tax amount was, but basically, let's assume it's 10%. So they would mark it up to give Russia their cut. So the EU and Ukraine were like, hey, if we manage to cut Russia, we can basically each get an extra 5% savings for EU, 5% on us, on billions of dollars, that a lot of money. And Russia was like, what the hell are you talking about? That's our money. That was the right. That's why we let you separate under that condition in the first place. So this ultimately, and then they have the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is going through Ukraine, which is, a big, massive asset that Russia, that was terrifying America. They don't want Russia to be able to supply gas to the EU. So now you basically have this massive money fight. And that's what I think ultimately this Ukrainian war is about. That's why America cares about it. That's why EU sort of cares about it. That's why Russia, that's why he's in there. I think ultimately the same way that we had corrupt motives, that it was ultimately about money, this war for America is also a corrupt motive. But I also think it's no more virtuous for Putin. I think for him, it's mostly about the money. I think that he wants to be able to build this pipeline. And that's why this was so unnecessary. Everything. You just needed someone who's a negotiator to sit down with Ukraine, with Zelensky and Putin. If Biden had any sort of foresight, or I don't know if he even had the will, but if he had the will and the capacity to actually sit down and say, okay, this is how we're going to sort this out and cut this pie up in ways that are amenable to everyone, there'd be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who died over the last 3 years who would still be alive, and billions in our pocket.
Yeah, there's a lack of nuance. Like, nobody wants to sit down and look at the finer details of anything anymore, right? So, and by the way, it's what you do, right? You look at the finer details. People, for the most part, don't. They'll take the headlines and they'll run with it because it's convenient. Because they, again, like I say, you got to get involved because they don't want to dig any deeper. They want to take the headline and run. And so we have an issue where, like, why aren't we asking these questions? Why is it, for example, who the hell are the EU to tell us that Tucker Carlson can't go there? Like, what has that got to? When have Americans ever given a damn about what Europe has thought about them? And look, here's the funny thing. Growing up as a Brit, the Brits hate the French hate the Germans hate they all hate each other. So there's one dysfunctional big family. So you got to be thinking, well, what is it that
sounds like the DNC, by the way?
Right. Well, what? Yeah, but yeah, but
you got the feminists, and then you got the trans, and then you got the blacks. And
yeah, but you know what? It's funny you should say that. They all join up, don't they? When they've got a common enemy.
Yes.
So the EU,
when Trump's in power, they all join up. Now that they have the power, that's where you see the friction and them fighting and everything. But they'll come back together when it's to fight a common enemy. Yeah. And that's what they do because the victory is more important. And that's one of the points I was trying to make over the last couple of days. Like, this is what they do. This is why they win. And it's going to be very, very difficult for us to claw our way back from that. But yeah, so why aren't we asking the question, what has the EU got to do with our business? That's number one. Number two, who is Zelensky telling us that Americans have to give him money? What is going on? I mean, I'm looking at this whole thing and how dysfunctional it is. That the border's been open, millions coming over, and yet legal people are doing it the right way, and they're like, hang on a minute, we got to go through this process, and we're seeing people. It is maddening, right? It's gaslighting on an international scale. So I'm looking forward to it. Zelensky. I don't know why you're asking these questions about Zelensky, because the answer is very clear. Because everyone knows, we all have it well established that Putin is Mr. Evil. He's the personification. He's Satan come to life. And this right here is, if this is what Tucker's interview sounds like. Yeah.
And by the
That's a
way,
fail.
here's the thing that, and this really pissed me off when he turned up to Congress wearing that sweater and he didn't put a suit on. I'm like, you are going to the center of the democracy in the free world. Put a frigging suit on, dude. Put a
No,
tie on.
that's not what bothered me. What bothered me was seeing Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris standing behind him with their big Ukrainian flag in the middle of freaking Congress. What bothered me was seeing Congress on the steps of the Capitol with a bastardized American flag that instead of stars had their stupid, I don't even know, like what is it?
That thing like a trident thing?
Yeah, a Triton thing instead of stars, to basically say they're like better than our 51st state. They're like actually redefining what America is. When I saw that, that's when I was like, you're all freaking traitors. That you would actually pretend that this is an important part of us. We don't even have a freaking treaty with them, but they're not a part of NATO, but they are America. They're redefining what America is. I was so outraged.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't speak for us. Like those individuals that you listed are so corrupt. I mean, it is so obviously corrupt.
Yeah. Let me get to a couple of super chats here,
All
and then
right.
I have something I want to share with it's a little bit off topic, but
Right.
this one I'm going to spend 1 minute sharing something. Angle Studio is up and coming. They understand you need good movie, not just Christian message. Hope they keep the momentum. For someone we're not at war with, the media sure seems to be reacting to the interview like it's someone we're at war with. Yeah, no, we're not at all with war with Russia, but how dare you interview the enemy? We believe WMD got us into Iraq. MSM lied. Yeah, that's why I can't trust him anymore. Last night on the following program says, I spent 21 years as a U.S. soldier, and at the time I bought all the lies about the wars I fought in. Allegan News says Russia is not USSR, but media and U.S. government wants you to think they're the same. This is true.
Yep.
He also likes all the money he has hidden away. Yeah, a lot of the money that we sent them went missing. What I want to share with you, if you'll indulge me for a minute here, is there's a YouTuber who I started following like 10 years ago, long before and was one of my inspirations for making a channel. And I hadn't seen any work from her in a very long time. And the channel's name is Cringe Panda. And she came out with and at the time I thought her channel was massive, which I didn't realize until now that she has 67,000 followers. I was like, I thought of her channel as being like huge. And yeah, so apparently she's been dealing with health issues, and I just want to share with you all the first minute of her work, and urge each of you who are watching this to please sub up and watch her content. She's been doing this since she was literally a little girl, like literally like a 9-year-old blonde girl who would wear like this panda thing on her head all the time. So this is Cringe Panda, and I'm gonna put a link to this video, and I'm in the description. I'm gonna urge each of you guys to check out her work and sub up to her, because she's based and she's actually been dealing with health issues. So let me just let me share this here with you all for just like a minute of Cringe Panda.
Welcome to the impromptu stream. I am your hostess, Astrid O'Brien. Yes, it's been a minute, and I'm visiting home. Some of you know I've been in the hospital for the last 6 months, and I'm easing into being at home again. And I'll be talking about all that in a future video, not far from now. In case you missed that post, here it is.
Hey everyone, some of you might be wondering where I've been, and I'm just here to kind of fill you in.
She's been wearing that hat since she started making these videos like 10 years ago.
So, that rhymed. I've been sick for the last 6 months, and I was in the hospital, so now I'm gonna be coming home soon, and I'll have some new stuff for you guys. And can't wait to be back. So, I'm almost there. Just give it a few more weeks, and I'll be back home. But right now, I'm back home for a visitation. So, we're at the last few steps. Bye!
There are 2 reasons why I'm making this video. First of all, YouTube. I got a message from them saying I hadn't uploaded in a while, and they generously gave me until the 19th to accumulate 4,000 hours of watch time.
So she needs 4,000 hours of watch time to remain monetized, which is the primary reason. I mean, look, I think you'll all enjoy her content. I wouldn't be pitching it if I'm telling you, I've been watching her I've been watching her videos, like I said, for the last 10 years or so. But so she needs to accumulate 4,000 hours, otherwise they're going to demonetize her.
Or else, well, so this leads me into the second reason. If you were one of the wonderful people who watched my video on woke cartoons, you probably got confused when this part showed up. Groomies. Long story short, that segment jumps all over the place, and it was because YouTube repeatedly made me edit it down, or else. So now my favorite part doesn't make sense at all. But now I don't care if this video gets demonetized. I need 4,000 watch hours, so this is all I can give you until next weekend. And I can already hear some of you being like, 96 million migrants crossing the border and you're still talking about the groomers?
Hey.
Well, it's still happening, right?
Hey kids! Hi kids! I want to talk to the kids. Hey kids! Hi kids! Hey kids! Hi! It's good for children to see LGBTQ lives. Your parents screwed up. If you need a family, you can come hang out with me.
Isn't that creepy? Isn't that freaking I mean, that guy is just, oh my God. So some of the stuff, so the video that she did here, I can't really show all of it because I will be demonetized. But if I share this, but yeah, you can see her like basically railing against these cartoons, which are pushing kids into just understanding that they're not necessarily a whatever gender they were born. And she rails against them as she's watching this cartoon. I'm just gonna watch another like 30 seconds, and hopefully I don't hit a bad part.
Should stop because you're indoctrinating kids. I just want to get this blue thing and yeah.
Anyway, so that's Cringe Panda. So I'm going to put a link to this in my description. I'm going to urge each of you can just check out this video here. Help her get to her 4,000 hours because that is a big deal. Staying monetized is a big deal. So I'm going to urge you all to make sure that you can try to check that out and help her out because she's a great young woman and she's also dealing with health issues, and wish her only the best because, like I said, she was an inspiration to me. I don't know if I would have made this channel if I saw that what she was doing. I was like, I agreed with so much of her messaging that I was just like, and I thought that it was just adorable to see that this little girl is making these videos. She was like 9 years old when she was making those videos. Now she's like 19 or so. But yeah, so if you guys can check out, it's in the description already. You can check it out, and I'll put in the Rumble description as well. Anyway, so a couple of other things I wanted to ask you about. Were you following the Crumbly case?
No.
Oh, so the Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of the school shooter, she got convicted yesterday.
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah. All right. So I'm not gonna. I was gonna share with you a video about that, but I don't want to pull you aside.
Oh, you can.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how long this other segment I had prepped up.
I've played a lawyer once on TV, so you know.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's great. I've said stuff like that all the time, but it's obviously a joke. With you, I was like, wait, that could be true. Damon says, isn't Putin's atrocities that they hate him for? He even has harder and woker hate speech laws. It's that he advocates for economies to be tied to industry and grain, not their fiat trash. He also isn't down with the alphabet community at all.
Yeah.
In the Olympics, they started really turning on him as soon as he banned alphabets from the Olympics. That's when, before that, Obama was like, what's the problem with Russia? What's the problem with Russia? As soon as he did that, they used that as like, oh my gosh, he's personification of evil.
Yeah, but you know what? They were okay with where the World Cup was, right?
No, where was the World Cup?
Very interesting. I think it was Qatar.
Oh, yeah.
Or Qatar or whatever you call it. Like, yeah. It was like, oh no, it was so hypocritical of the British soccer players, right? They were like, yeah, well, we're gonna go and we're gonna wear our rainbow things, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to a foreign country. Respect the country that you're going to. You shouldn't be just trying to import. If only people would do this here. Like, stop importing your morals to them, right? Just don't go. If you don't agree with it, don't go. But they wouldn't do that, would they? They've got to take the coin. Such hypocrites.
Is Trailblazers Pictures Antonio Sabato Jr. still a thing? I should follow him since he's in Florida also, but I lost track of him. I don't know who. Do you know who that is?
No, I think that he was trying to get something up and running. But again, I mean, he's actually done stuff in the industry. and it's just very, very surprising when you get someone who actually knows what they're doing to get backing.
Yeah. What I meant to pull up earlier, something else I had put aside here, when you were talking about the most corrupt, evil people that I happened to mention by name, and Nancy and Kamala, was that Joe Rogan was talking about this. When you talk about corruption,
they have to do two things. Two things would fix a lot. They have to stop Congress people from being able to fucking insider trade. That shit is insane. When you see the fact that these people are making $170,000,
incredible.
Oh,
she's great at it.
She's
man.
amazing at it. She's a wizard at it. But it's not just her. If you look at the chart, that's the thing about it is they all kind of keep their mouth shut, because if you look at the real numbers, it's pretty much divided
It's both
between
sides.
Republicans
It's
and
definitely both
Democrats.
sides.
Yeah, it's both. Both sides are doing it. But that's crazy. They put Martha Stewart in jail for way less.
it's
Martha Stewart. They put Martha Stewart, America's mom. They put her in jail for insider trading, and yet these Congress people are completely exempt from it.
But it
And
wasn't them, right? It was their significant other. I'm sure they weren't sharing any information.
some of it's them.
Some of it is them.
Oh yeah, it's them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know what bills are going to be passed. They buy a shitload of stock, and they pass these bills, and then this whatever industry is goes up, and they make enormous profits. There's people that are making $150, $170, $200,000 a year, and they're worth $90 million. In any
Excellent
other
Waters.
business, you would be investigated.
You would be.
And if you were a fucking plumber and you were making $190,000 a year and you were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, people would go, "What the fuck are you doing, Ted?" You know, they would
Are you
crawl up
dealing
your ass with a
cocaine?
microscope. Where the fuck do you get this money? How do you know all these things? Like, where are you getting this data? How are you able to do this? Oh, you pass the laws? You pass the laws that changes the value of these companies, and then you gamble on that? That's what you're doing? You're going to jail. You're going to jail. Like that should be illegal, because you're going to do things to profit that are above and that are ahead. You're going to put that ahead of the better good of the United States. You're going to. They all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Anyway, so any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm a big one. I think there should be term limits. I know a lot of people argue, "Oh no, you should." That they can't get anything done. They're not in long enough to get anything done. But I think there should absolutely be term limits. I think same with the funding. The funding is all corrupt, and I agree completely. Like, why is it that all these people, they get, I don't know how much it is, like $250,000 a year or whatever, and they go into Congress with hardly any money, and then they come out of it and they're worth $30 million. It's like, hang on a minute, I'm not a math major, but I'm just kind of figuring that doesn't work.
The numbers don't really add. We saw it by what was really astonishing was by COVID. Like, when they knew that there were going to be lockdowns coming, and both sides of the aisle, they were just yanking their money out of the stock market, like left and right, before anyone knew that this stuff was happening. And it was so gross. I mean, and Nancy Pelosi, her track record. I mean, you just basically I think Unusual Whales has basically a Nancy Pelosi segment. Like, they have like a page dedicated to Nancy Pelosi, because whatever she bets on, it just goes through the roof. She's really good at it.
Yeah, I'm sure she's really good at it. I think that's what Joe was saying, right? Like, it's amazing. Like, all these things just keep working out. But look, again, they're being allowed to do it. I don't understand personally how so much has gone on. There's so much corruption going on, and Americans kind of just shrug their shoulders and get on with it. And I think that whatever happened, I don't know if you can talk about this either, on a certain date in January, that was...
You can talk about January 6th. Yeah, you can talk about January 6th.
Okay, so the aftermath of January the 6th, I believe, is a real... whatever you think about it, whatever happened, whatever, the fact that they just threw people in jail, they didn't do due process. I'm sure you've done a lot of that. I know a guy that turned up there. It was a DEA agent, and when he got back the next day, wasn't even on the Capitol apparently, and he gets back and he's fired from his job, and he's looking at 14 years in prison. To me, that's clear intimidation, right? It's saying, don't you ever, ever, ever try that again in any way, shape, or form. And that's not even going into any kind of conspiracy over who was there, who ushered them in, what happened. I mean, there's a lot of lies that went on there. We know from all that footage coming out. But at the end of the day, I think that Americans really have to understand, if you want it to change, because look, if we went into Congress, right? If we're like, Mr. Smith goes to Washington, right? Like, we're going to Washington and we're getting in there and we're going to change things. And someone goes, you can't change anything. So do you want to make $20 million or not? Because once you go out, then that's it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, it takes a really strong person to say, no, do you know what? I'm going to stand up for it. And then you stand up and then you get battered down by everybody else. Everybody, because they're all the same. There's a few that aren't, but the majority of them are the same. So what are you going to do?
Did you see Tulsi Gabbard explaining what happened to her when she got to Congress?
No.
So
I love her, by the way. I love her.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, you're not going to love her gun position, but...
No, I don't, but I love her.
Right. So, don't worry, I'm not going to tell your wife. So, Tulsi was explaining that when she got to Congress, she was pulled aside and she was basically told, you came here with all your hopes and dreams and stuff like that. And that's all really nice and beautiful. If you buck the party line, you're not going to be on any committees. You're not going to get any assignments. You're basically going to end up being a one-term congressperson. And that's what they tell all incoming freshmen. And I'm sure they do it on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
That if you try breaking from what we tell you to do, then you are going to be a one-term congressperson and kiss your political career goodbye. And so you can understand. Whereas if you go along with them, become an advocate of it, so you'll be able to push. You're sort of easy to rationalize. It's very easy to rationalize and say, you know what, I'll sort of bend the knee a little bit here. And when I do that, like, I'll be able to like stay in power to affect the changes that I came here to effectuate. And if I don't do that, then I'm not going to have any ability to make those changes. So it's better to sort of give in a little bit, even if it's not something that I campaigned on or I promised my constituents I was going to do. If I give on A and B, I can get C done. And otherwise, none of it's going to get done. And that's how. And then you start seeing the money that you start being able to get access to, and all of a sudden people are very, very interested in trying to promote your campaign. And the big whales on both left and right, both sides of the aisle, they start, they're like, okay, this person's part of the uniparty, because there is no difference. There's no difference between Chuck Schumer and or Lindsey Graham. They're the exact same person. Just if in my state I need to be Republican, I'm in South Carolina, I have to be Republican if I'm going to get elected. Chuck Schumer's, I'm in New York, I have to be a Democrat. And that there's certain party lines that are like basically, oh, okay, so I guess I'm in this state, so I have to be pro-choice. No, I'm in that state, I'm pro-life. We don't know what any of these people actually feel or believe. We don't know what they actually feel or believe. They're basically saying what their party wants them to say, and they've been saying it for decades. But as far as where their values lie, it's all a matter of like, okay, there's the stage fight that it's of left versus right, and occasionally we'll have a bipartisan like, yay, joining hands moment, but it's all just theater. It's all theater to keep Americans vested in believing that our system is operating and functioning the way it's supposed to. That since they hashed out a deal, that means this is a good deal. There's your diversity showing into strength. Our strength there. They hashed out this border security deal. That means since it's bipartisan, that means it's good. Bipartisan means it must be good, as opposed to being completely awful. Like
it's so it is. Once you see it clearly, and I think what you're saying before about your journey over the past few years, I feel the same, right? I'm looking at it, I'm like, hang on a second, like, are we the baddies? Like, what's going on here? Like, why are people like slavishly going that way and slavishly going that way? I'm like, actually, there's a lot of color in this. There's a lot of nuance. But in addition to that, when you said you're 53, right? You're 53? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm turning 51 pretty soon. I do not want to be clinging on like the crypt keeper from Tales of the Crypt, right? I don't want to be like this, like going into Congress, going, here, just like, what are they doing at 80 odd years old and 90? How old was what's her name? Feinstein. She's like 300 years old, and she's still clinging on to power, and people are still voting them in. Well, voting them in. I'm like, what? Why aren't you at home? This is something that gets me. Do you really think that they're going out there and they're saying, you know what, I'm doing this for the country. I have to do this for the country, right? I just don't get it, because for me, I want to be sitting at 80 if I make it that long. I want to be sitting there surrounded by my kids, my grandkids, and my great grandkids, having a great time, loving America. I don't want to be up on Capitol Hill like arguing about this and that. Like, what kind of a person does that? And you have to ask yourself these questions, right? Because everyone looks and says, well, you know, most people will say, I want to retire, I want to enjoy my grandkids, right? At some point. Yeah. And they don't. So I'm not saying that's for everybody, but the majority of people, it's the same thing with Biden. I mean, I guess you look at him and look at the dysfunction, but like, what is he doing? What is his wife doing that she's wheeling that guy out? I mean, he is such a mess, and it is so embarrassing. And sometimes if I wasn't so mad sometimes at the things that he was doing, I feel really sorry for him. Yeah. Because they just like, shove this guy out.
If not for the fact that he was corruptly, basically
an evil,
selling political influence to foreign countries and the most corrupt people on the planet, like the most corrupt company in the most corrupt country and one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. Yeah. Aside from that,
but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I just look at them and I say all the politicians are corrupt. So it's like, degrees of corruption. But with him, I question how much he actually knows.
Oh yeah,
how much he's actually there to do that. I mean, I certainly that was one of the things. Like, nobody's really talking about Burisma. Like, nobody's really talking about it.
Speaking of which, by the way, do you remember when he was campaigning that they had lid days? Do you remember the term? I love the term lid days. People forget that this is how bad he was 3 years ago, before the stresses of being president. That when he was campaigning to the 6 circles that are and the bugs, there were the bugs flying around, and you see 6 circles, of which 4 of them have chairs in them, and the other 2 are just stark empty. Whereas Trump is campaigning to millions of people chanting, "We love you, we love you," and he's talking to 6 circles there, saying, "Truman is coming in." But and even for that, he would have lid days. Lid days were days where, like, he had a scheduled event, but he's not up to it today. Physically, mentally, who the hell knows? Emotionally, maybe he's crying in his basement. Maybe he got over medicated that day, under medicated. No one knows. But it's like, and that's what he was 4 years ago. That's what he was 4 years ago. I mean, it's astonishing that they're wheeling him. I'll tell you this much. I don't think he's going to make it. I think
I've thought that for a long time, that Gavin Newsom is going to come in. But let me ask you this. Because this is really interesting. So I was in California, and you're in New York, right? I think New York is a special place, right? But California, I am sure I would go outside and I would see, driving down the streets, is not a joke, in Los Angeles, people with Trump flags out their car. Mm-hmm. I saw it everywhere. I saw in my gym guys wearing the Trump t-shirts. And I was like, what is going on? Like, is he gonna win California? I mean, is that even possible? I mean, look, what a lot of people don't realize is there are more Republicans in California than I think it's almost any other state, right? There's, because it's a massive state, right? Population wise, there's a lot of Republicans there. It's just where they are, right? So I remember thinking, oh, this is just a throwaway candidate, right? Like, Biden isn't. I mean, nobody thought he was going to win, and then he picked the woman that got 2% in the debates. Like, this is a disaster. You got like an old fart that can't even talk, and you got a woman. I'm not even going to comment on her past, right? But I can certainly comment on that she was the most unpopular person on that stage at that time.
She's so cringe. I mean, everything about her. from the way she talks, the way she laughs, the way she dances, the way she answers questions. Everything about her is so revolting. And I don't mean this, and I don't mean just the lurid past that you were referencing. I'm just saying her personality is just like
it's ugly. It's an ugly personality. There's nothing charming about. You know, when you talk about someone being charming on one side, you're looking at the complete opposite here. She's completely uncharming. And again, what does the left tell you? She's brilliant. She's amazing. She's super sweet. She's gorgeous. And then with him, it's like, oh, he's so sharp. He's the best president ever. He's this, he's that. And the guy doesn't even know which way to walk off stage.
Yeah.
So, but why aren't we questioning this a little bit more? It's kind of forgotten, right? And I've seen this online. It's like, oh, you know, Trump can't beat Biden. He was a throwaway candidate. They did not think, in my estimation, I'd like to know what you think, but they did not think that they could win with him initially. I mean, when people like, they're going to roll out Biden, like that guy. And then I remember the debates. I'm like, this is going to be a bloodbath. Like he's going to be he's going to be like, and it was almost like they pumped him up with something and they sent him out there. And I was like, oh, he's coherent. Like, what is going on? Yeah. The whole thing, that whole election was weird. Yeah. And I know it was COVID as well, right?
Right.
But it was the whole thing was strange. The whole thing right now is strange.
Completely inorganic. Yeah, you nailed it. Matthew, I'm going to give you one of these over here. Hitting me with 220, so I'm gonna count that as a 50. What do you think of Chris Evans' attempt to facilitate political info conversations engagement with a starting point? On top of web efforts, they visited White House this month with high schoolers. I do trust a nonpartisan. Thoughts? I don't know anything about this. Do you know anything about this?
No, I don't. I mean, I've seen him say a couple of things, and it's not really nonpartisan, but I don't know. I mean, I'm all for it, right? I mean, if it's starting an argument, I'm starting a discussion. I think that's a good thing.
Amen. Yeah. Look, I'll tell you that that the thing the left seems to fear is actual, genuine discussion and dialogue, because anything that's disrupting the narrative is very disconcerting. That's part of the reason that they're constantly canceling and trying to suppress free speech. Anyhow, I didn't even ask you. I feel bad. I don't know what you make your living doing now, because you basically implied that you're not working in Hollywood anymore. So what? I should have asked you this probably 2 hours ago. But what do you live off of?
I sell my body in Dallas for money. It's I don't get a lot.
Chippendales. It's Chippendales, basically.
Yeah. No. So I actually do get. I still make money out of movies. Actually,
I've seen in IMDb that there's a few things about that you are in Reacher, right? I saw that.
I was in Reacher. I played Stan Reacher. I played his dad. That's where I am now. Yeah.
You're playing Reacher's dad?
Yeah, that's where I am now. I'm an old man. I'm playing his dad.
Wait, do they give you old person makeup to make you look older? Or
no, it was a flashback to when he was a little boy. So it was a nice little gig, and then I did a movie which I can't really talk about, but you will be very, 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 very interested in. I should talk to you offline about it. But
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
That's coming out, and actually, I've just started my own YouTube channel.
Oh, so what's it called?
It's just the Matthew Marsden Show. If you go and look up my name, you can find it. I should really. I see. I'm new at this.
Yeah, you need to know.
So. Yeah, so I actually just did an interview.
They can find you at goodlogic.locals.com. Is that where they find you?
Is that where I've got to go? Is that what I've got to do now? That's what I've got to do. No, so I've got to tell you this today. This is really fascinating. I actually did an interview with a guy who's an expert on the Shroud of Turin. So I'm doing a lot of interviews with soldiers, and because of my involvement in Rambo and Black Hawk Down and all that, I've got a lot of friends that have stories to tell. So I'm going to be doing more of that. It's been a real kind of journey, because I didn't really, honestly, I don't like it when actors talk about politics, right? I don't, and I didn't want to be that guy, but they forced me into doing something, so I've got to go.
Every time you try getting out,
they just pull me back in.
That's your. This is why you can't get work. That was terrible. That was terrible.
Oh,
Pull me back in. Let me see what this. Hold on a second. I just found something. I was searching the interwebs for Matthew Marsden, and I found this here. Let's see what.
Oh yeah.
I don't know which one's you. Rambo. There he is. Dang. Cover up to the. Dang.
Who is that handsome fella? Who is that guy?
Meeting without your right-hand man. Must be real important.
I've ordered the replacement.
That
meal
sounds
for the
so
real North line
American.
from Weird and Steve.
Yeah, it's called acting.
You had a contract with Orrin Boyle.
By the way, this character James Taggart, I based on not John Kerry, John Edwards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Slimy.
Nice.
So yeah.
As much authority as you
I'm
have to do a
enjoying
backdoor
this.
deal
This is
with
cool.
Orrin Boyle. There are consequences to this accident, Jim. We have to service Ellis Wyatt. He is this company's main priority.
You just love to keep feeding the monopolies,
If
don't you?
keep pissing off the heart of this operation, Wyatt is going to stop providing the blood we need to keep this company alive. Do you understand that?
Why go with Weird and Steel when there are smaller companies that actually need the money?
It's just new metal.
That metal's
This is
completely
great.
tested. The consensus of the best metallurgical authorities are highly skeptical.
I'm not interested in their opinions.
See, you know what it is? It's that you make Al Pacino nervous, and he controls Hollywood. That's what it is. You're making him nervous here. That's what I'm saying.
Commander Hall,
SWAT under siege.
I'm the man in control of the small army sitting on your doorstep. Do you have a moment to chat? The man you pulled out of a box belongs to me.
This is great. I don't want to. You need to go to his
He's
channel.
gonna
see the
watch my
entire
movies.
thing. Yeah, no, this is great. This is really good. I got it now. That's on your channel, right?
Yeah, I just put that was so basically when you want to put your stuff up there and they ask for when casting directors ask for what you've done before, you just put a little reel. And when I went back to the channel, because I'd kind of got those things on there that I'd send privately, I was like, I'll just make those two things public, because the one movie Bounty Killer, it was a lot of fun. I got to, stand on the top of that Airstream trailer for real and do those stunts for real. So that was kind of fun. But I've done a bunch of, I did a movie with Bruce Willis just before his last but one film, actually, which was quite something. So I did that. And really, I should update those things, but I've been like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sloppy like that,
Yeah, so I just put a link in for your channel there. And by the way, the reason you're
Thank
confused
you.
is because it's called Matthew D. Marsden.
Matthew D. Marsden. There you go.
Right.
Matthew
So
D.
I'm
Marsden.
gonna edit my Rumble also. So that are you familiar with what Rumble is? Because I know you're new to this game.
Yeah. I'm new to all that malarkey, but I am familiar with it. I do need to start putting stuff on there as well.
Yeah, because they are so far they've proven themselves so far to hold true to their word that they're allowing genuine free speech. So in case you want to talk about stuff like about the tyranny of 2020, so you can actually talk about that on Rumble, whereas you can't really do that on YouTube. So there was a 2-year period where you could not talk about. We had to call it the election fortification of 2020 or stuff like that. Like you had to sort of, and thank you for sharing that, Debbie. They changed that when Trump started running because they recognized that this was going to be something that would be coming up a lot. So they sort of recognized they had to allow us to discuss the issues with the 2020 election and just how corrupt that was. So, but and maybe eventually we'll be able to talk about the dreaded C word and the policies in effect then. But I've been hit twice by YouTube for that, which is why I'm particular. That's why it's become a running joke on my show.
Oh, really?
I constantly, that anytime anything remotely medicinal comes up, I start basically disclaiming any knowledge about science, medicine, whatever. Go talk to your doctor. I'm not a doctor. He's a doctor. I used to start it with like, YouTube wants me to tell you that I know nothing about medicine, and I am. That was like my running thing that I had going on here. So great show, Joe. Keep it up. Keep it up, and your wish of becoming bigger than Ben Shapiro could come true. That's not my dreams. He's not my yardstick. It's a competition with myself, and myself is much more talented and likable than Ben Shapiro. So I naturally that will happen, but it's a competition with myself, not with Benny. Already,
thank you,
Matthew. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
I asked
anyone
you
that
to go in
subscribed.
tunnels and drink Kool-Aid. Are you willing to go into the tunnels and drink Kool-Aid?
What does that mean?
I
don't know what that means.
I don't even realize how many inside jokes I have on my channel until the diggers start coming out.
So can you tell me what that means?
Okay, I promised I was going to explain it to you, so I'll explain it to you. Okay.
All right.
This show is called The Following Program. Okay. So when I was trying, you can give names to your subscribers. When you get monetized, you'll see that you can create subscriptions to the channel.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, so it's The Following Program. So people, because I was, the reason I came up with the name The Following Program is because I was like, they have those in front of movies a lot, or TV shows will be like The Following Program is like a whole long thing, right?
Yeah.
So like, and then I realized like that's a great way to just sort of like anytime someone sees that, it's almost like boom, boom, it's putting in their head The Following Program, like it's a reference to me. So it's sort of like is re-embedding me. That's how they came up with the name Mad Max. Mad Max came up. Max Headroom they came up with that because in overpasses they used to always say Max Headroom, like as far as like the height for clearance. So they reckon they stole it from that, figuring that whenever people are driving, they'll see Max Headroom all over the place. So that's how I came up with The Following Program, which meant when I was assigning what labels people will be, I called people who subscribe to the channel followers. Now this led people to think that I was starting some sort of cult, which I always am very, very clear to them that this is not at all a cult type of cult. There's no Kool-Aid, no spaceships, no self-harm, no harming others, no squirrel mutilations, no goat sacrifices, no throwing virgins in volcanoes, no stabbing yourself with the jabby jab. It's not, there's no tracksuits. Well, okay, there are tracks. They're not mandatory tracksuits, mild farm work. Yeah, it's not at all. It's not so. And my locals people, for a long story, I'm not going to tell you, they got the nickname Diggers like a year ago. So since I'm Jewish, I'm practicing Orthodox Jew. So when the story of the tunnels in New York came out, you heard about that.
Oh,
right?
yes, I did. Yeah.
Everyone's confused what those tunnels are about. So that just sort of naturally played into the fact that they call themselves, well, they're called, my locals people are referred to as diggers. And I'm a Jewish guy here who's got diggers. So that's why I get a lot of jokes about tunnels or Kool-Aid because of,
Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, that's
now I understand. I like it. I feel like I've been let into like the circle of trust.
Look, for $100 a month, you can become a high priest. So there's different levels. There's disciple level. There's prophet level. Depends on your level of dedication to the following. I'm not the leader of the cult, but not a cult. I'm not the leader of the following. I'm a follower, just like you. So there
what's
you go.
What's the Scientology thing now? They have that Thetan. Can I? Who gets to Thetan?
I don't.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah. We are offering for some people. We're offering having naming ceremonies because people for the following, because not everyone wants to go by their given name. I recognize that. So I'm thinking about having naming ceremonies. That's the next thing, just so that people can feel like they're really more part of the following. The following is all about community unity and greater personal growth. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. So that's why people. All right. When I lay it out like this, it doesn't sound at all. People lose track of the fact that it's not at all a cult. It's not at all.
That's what all cult leaders say.
The type of cult. So yeah. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I had a great time with you. I kept you here 15 minutes long, which is not something I usually do to a guest. But I'm gonna ask you to stick around so we can talk about that other thing afterwards.
All right.
But if there's any final words that you want to share with anyone here or whatever.
Yeah, well, firstly I want to thank you for being so generous to have me on your show. I've really,
pleasure.
really enjoyed it, and your audience seem absolutely terrific. So I'm glad to be a part of the cult that isn't a cult.
It's not at all a cult.
Totally not.
Type of cult. So thank you so much. Tomorrow, just a reminder, goodlogic.locals.com. Goodlogic.locals.com. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I will be here on YouTube and Rumble watching SCOTUS oral arguments. You're not going to want to miss this. This is oral arguments about whether or not Trump can stay on the ballot in Colorado and in front of the Supreme Court. You're definitely going to want to watch that. Tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., I'm going to be doing a locals. Probably, almost definitely, it's going to be on locals, where I'm going to be covering we're doing a live watch of Tucker interviewing Putin, and then tomorrow at 10, regular show. I thank you so much. I had a great time with you. Stick around, and that's all I got. You guys stay happy, eat the bugs, and as always, Godspeed.